I work at a large grocery store chain doing stock work, putting away returned items, and handling various tasks around the store. It's a smaller location, so most employees can handle different jobs. This particular evening, I was working on putting away a cart full of items customers had decided they didn't want or items that were damaged. I should explain something important about myself first. I'm not completely deaf, but my hearing is very limited. I can barely make out loud sounds like doors slamming or phone ringtones, but I can't hear voices at all, not even when people are shouting. I know sign language, and I wear a large pin and lanyard that tells people I'm deaf. I also carry a small notebook with pre-written responses to common questions, kind of like flashcards. Communication can be tough sometimes, but I try my best to make it work, and I come prepared. Most people are understanding and patient with me. We figure out how to communicate and get through whatever they need. Some really kind people even know sign language, and that always makes my day. I'm pretty young and probably don't look like what people expect a hearing impaired person to look like, so when people get a little annoyed because I don't respond right away, they usually feel bad and apologize once they understand. This time was different though. This is where things got really bad. I was working my way through the store that evening and decided to start early on the returned items cart, which was packed full. Since I was starting earlier than usual, there were more customers still shopping compared to when I normally do this work. No problem, I started anyway. About halfway through the cart, I was in the paper towels section when I felt someone roughly poke me in the shoulder. I jumped and spun around, startled to see this woman standing there. She was taller than me and I'm 6 feet tall, so she was really tall. She was very thin, probably in her mid-50s, with frizzy blonde hair barely held back by a bright red hat. This was back in September of 2020, and of course she wasn't wearing a mask. She started what I could tell was yelling based on the angry look on her face and how her mouth was moving. I started pointing to my lanyard and my ears, trying to show her that I couldn't hear what she was saying. A customer who was nearby later wrote down for me what she was actually saying. She was demanding to know why I was ignoring her and claiming she'd been trying to get my attention for 5 minutes. Then she stepped forward and grabbed my lanyard, yanking it hard until it unsnapped from around my neck. She threw it on the ground. At this point, I was getting really nervous and starting to panic. I tried to actually speak and say I couldn't hear, but I'm not sure how it came out since I've never heard my own voice. My girlfriend says it sounds cute, but I have no idea what I actually sound like. That's when another customer came around the corner. He was a guy in his 30s who walked up to Karen and asked what the problem was. He looked over at me and I frantically pointed to the pin on my mask and grabbed my notebook to scribble down that I was deaf and didn't know why she was yelling at me. He turned back to Karen and they started arguing with each other. The nice customer was defending me, pointing out that I was clearly deaf and asking why she was yelling at a young employee like that. Karen kept insisting I wasn't really deaf and was just ignoring her because I was a lazy worker. This went on for a few minutes and I finally started crying because they were making a scene and people were gathering around to watch. Finally, my 2 managers showed up. My direct manager walked up to me while the regional manager went over to the nice customer and Karen, who were really shouting at each other now. My manager knows sign language and asked in signs if I was okay. I told her in sign language that I was fine and wiped the tears from my face and picked up my lanyard from the ground. She told me in signs to get my things and wait for her in the employee break room. About 15 minutes later, both managers came into the break room with a police officer. Karen had been arrested. My manager explained in sign language that Karen was arrested for third-degree assault and the officer needed a written statement from me. The officer asked through my manager if I wanted to press charges. I definitely said yes and wrote out my statement. The nice customer had stayed around too and I wrote him a thank you note. My manager also told him she was giving him a gift card for being an upstanding citizen. That was the worst experience I've ever had with a customer, but I'm grateful there are good people like that customer and my managers who stood up for me. Karen ended up getting sentenced to a few months in jail, probation, and had to pay a hefty fine. This happened way back in the dark ages, 1986. I was 21 at the time and working for a gas station that was associated with a certain grocery store chain in Washington state. It was owned by a company not affiliated with said chain, but had locations at nearly every one. When this was long before the days of debit cards, this was a cash-only gas station. We didn't even take credit cards. Customers would pull up, pump their gas, and then come to my window to pay. We also sold cigarettes. No drinks, no snacks. Customers couldn't even get into my booth. I had been working there for about a year when the company announced it was closing the location. My manager and I were offered positions at another location upstate and we both accepted. We moved our respective families and started our new jobs as new hires. This station was incredibly busy. We did more business in 8 hours than my old location would do in a week. This location also had a different setup. Here you would pull into the station from a single entrance, pump your gas, and then drive forward to a single exit where the Pay Here booth was located. There were always 2 cashiers on duty. Each cashier had a cash drawer. One thing I should note, there were also no computers. So closing the drawer down between shifts was time-consuming and tedious. We had to manually count the cigarettes remaining and count the cash drawers. We would fill out an end-of-shift report listing the starting balances and the ending balances. We also had to list the gallons sold from each pump. At the end of the shift, the total of gallons sold and the total cigarettes sold should equal the cash balance. It is important to note here that not once in the year I had worked for the previous location had I been off by more than 10 cents. The following morning after my first shift, I was told by the manager that I was short $50. I said it was impossible and that I had balanced out yesterday. He said that I must have stolen that money after I had completed the paperwork. I told him no, I didn't. He gave me a verbal warning and said if it happened again, I would be fired and the stolen money would be deducted from my paycheck this week. In the 5 days that followed, I realized the manager was up to something. My old manager, who was just another worker now, was also accused of stealing, as was one other new employee. I can't vouch for the other employee, but I'm pretty sure she did nothing wrong. The employees that had been there a while were never accused of anything. I did some checking and found out this manager was relatively new, had only been there about 6 months, and the other cashiers had been here before him. Only new cashiers were being accused of stealing, and that location had been having stealing problems for about 6 months, and the turnover was high with the new employees. I came to work at 6 a.m. on a Monday only to be told I was being fired. The manager accused me of taking $500 out of my drawer the previous Friday. He said he only discovered it that morning even though he had worked Saturday and Sunday. I said okay and left. I was pretty angry and instead of going home, I parked in the grocery store parking lot and proceeded to settle in to watch the gas station. I knew that at 9 a.m. sharp, he would take the cash in the safe and make the weekend deposit. At 9 a.m. he left the gas station and headed to the bank. But instead of walking into the bank, he walked into the Indian casino next door. It's not really a casino like we think of today, but more of a betting parlor for the races. It did have slot machines, but no card tables. I think this is interesting. He comes out of the casino at exactly 10 a.m., walks next door to the bank, does his business, and then heads back to the gas station. I head home with a plan. Every morning I'll follow him from the gas station to the casino. I take a picture of him leaving, and one of him arriving at the bank and walking into the casino. I take pictures of him coming out, and then heading to the bank. I do this for 5 days straight. He even went on Saturday. On day 3, my old manager was fired for stealing $150. I get the film developed, know the times and dates on the back of each one. Then I called the main office of the gas company. It's after 5 p.m., but I'm hoping someone is there. And there is. I speak to a woman and explain my situation, and she says she knows exactly who I should speak to and transfers me. By some grace of God, she has transferred me to none other than the president of the company. I tell him my story and tell him I did not steal from his company and could prove who actually did. He took down my information and said he would be in touch. I'm thinking to myself, yeah, right. The next morning I went to the station to perform my usual observation of the manager. At 9 a.m. he leaves for the bank. At 10 a.m. he comes out. At that moment 2 stern-looking gentlemen approach him. One pulls out his wallet and shows him something. The other one is talking. The manager goes pale and takes a step back. Next thing I know, he is being escorted to a car I hadn't noticed, and they drive off. I lose them at a traffic signal, so I head back to the station. They all show back up about 5 minutes later, and a few minutes after that, a police cruiser pulls in. The officer talks to the stern gentleman and proceeds to place the manager in handcuffs. The other man says nothing but is looking daggers at the manager. The president called me later that afternoon and told me that the manager had been arrested for embezzlement. Turns out that in 6 months, he had managed to steal about $5,000. He would take the store cash into the casino and gamble with it. If he won, he would make the normal bank deposit. If he lost, he would make the deposit and note in his records that we had been short the previous day. The president had already been focusing on that location because of the stealing and high turnover rate, but my information helped them figure out what exactly had been going on. I was thanked and sent a substantial check as a reward. My old manager was offered the manager's job and I was offered my old job back. I declined as I had already found another job that I liked more and paid better. The gambling manager was sentenced to 1 year in jail and ordered to attend counseling for his gambling addiction. His wife divorced him and took their 3 children to California. His house was foreclosed on and he ended up in a homeless shelter. Don't accuse me of stealing. I will get revenge. I started working at this pet store a couple of years ago and I was desperate for any job. The pay wasn't great, but I needed something to cover my rent while I figured out my next move. The place was always understaffed and they expected one person to do the work of 3. My typical morning started at 7 in the morning. I had to clean all the animal cages, feed every single animal in the store, brush the cats and dogs so they looked presentable for customers, clean all the glass partitions, mop the entire floor, sweep everywhere, and make sure the cash register was stocked and ready. The store opened at 8:30 in the morning and I barely made it every single day. We only had 3 staff members total, and I was usually the only one there for the opening routine. My manager was one of those people who loved to micromanage everything but never actually helped with the work. She would stand around watching me rush through my morning tasks, always finding something to complain about. The store had 4 roller shutters total, 2 at the front entrance and 2 at the back loading area. One morning, my manager decided she had a new task for me. She told me that she wanted me to clean all the roller shutters before we opened that day, both the front and back ones. I explained to her that I already had all my regular morning tasks and that there wasn't enough time to clean the shutters and everything else before we opened. She dismissed my concern and told me to figure it out, saying she didn't want to see dirty shutters when customers started coming in. I knew it was impossible, but I tried anyway. After rushing through feeding all the animals and cleaning their cages, I grabbed a damp cloth and started wiping the roller shutters as fast as I could. I was moving the cloth back and forth in quick sweeps, just trying to get some of the dust off before opening time. Right at 8:30 in the morning, when I was unlocking the front door for customers, my manager walked over to inspect my work. She looked at the shutters and asked me what I called that cleaning job. She pointed at the roller shutters and complained about streaks and dust spots everywhere. She said that she had asked me to clean them properly and that my work was completely unacceptable. I tried to explain that I had cleaned them but only had a few minutes between all my other tasks. She cut me off and said there were no excuses. She said that when she asked me to clean something, she expected it to be spotless and that I needed to take more pride in my work. She walked away shaking her head, leaving me standing there frustrated and embarrassed in front of the first customers of the day. That's when I decided she was going to get exactly what she asked for. The next morning I came in and did all my regular tasks as usual. But when it came time for the roller shutters, I had a plan. I walked to the back of the store where the loading area shutters were located. Instead of just wiping them down, I pulled both back roller shutters completely down, blocking the entire back area from view. Then I started cleaning them properly, inch by inch, section by section. I would wipe a small area, then go rinse the cloth in the sink until the water ran completely clear, then come back and clean the next section. The store opened at 8:30 in the morning as usual, and customers started pouring in. But I was nowhere to be seen because I was hidden behind the closed roller shutters in the back. methodically cleaning every single inch. The front counter had a line of customers waiting to pay, but there was only one other staff member available to handle the register and help customers find what they needed. I could hear my manager calling my name from the front of the store. She was asking where I was and saying that they needed help up front. I called back to tell her that I was cleaning the roller shutters like she wanted and reminded her that she had said they needed to be spotless. I kept working, taking my time to make sure every spot was perfect. It took me a full 2 hours to finish just the back shutters. The cloth had to be rinsed dozens of times, and I made sure to get into every groove and corner. But I wasn't done yet. Now it was time for the front shutters. I walked to the front entrance and started pulling down both front roller shutters, completely blocking the main entrance to the store. Customers who were already inside started looking confused and asking what was happening. One customer asked if we were closing and wanted to know what was going on. My co-worker had to explain that we were still open and that customers could exit through the back if they needed to leave. Meanwhile, potential customers walking by saw the closed shutters and assumed we were closed for the day. They just kept walking past without even trying to come in. I started the same meticulous cleaning process on the front shutters. Inch by inch, rinse the cloth, clean some more, rinse again. My manager came over looking panicked and demanded to know what I was doing. She said to open the shutters right away because we were losing customers. I explained that I was cleaning the roller shutters properly like she had asked and reminded her that she had said they needed to be spotless and that I should take more pride in my work. She said this was ridiculous and that I couldn't block the entrance during business hours. I reminded her that yesterday she was upset because the shutters weren't clean enough and told her I was making sure they were perfect this time. I asked her if this wasn't what she wanted. She stood there fuming but couldn't really argue because she had demanded that I clean them properly. Customers inside the store had to walk all the way to the back exit to leave, and anyone wanting to come in had no idea how to get inside. I took another full 2 hours cleaning the front shutters, making sure every single spot was gone. When I finally raised them back up, it was almost 1 in the afternoon. The store had been essentially closed to new customers for 4 hours during some of our busiest morning hours. When I checked the daily sales report that evening, we had made about half of what we normally made on a typical day. All those customers who walked by thinking we were closed, all the people who left through the back exit in frustration, all the sales we missed while I was hidden in the back cleaning, it all added up to a significant loss. My manager was furious, but she couldn't write me up or punish me because I had followed her exact instructions. She had demanded spotless roller shutters, and that's exactly what she got. The next day, she pulled me aside and said that from now on, I should just do a quick wipe down of the shutters and not worry about making them perfect. I asked her if she was sure, reminding her that yesterday she had said they needed to be spotless and that I should take more pride in my work. She said to just do a quick cleaning and said we couldn't afford to block the entrance again. She never complained about the roller shutters again. In fact, she became much more reasonable about what tasks could realistically be completed in the time available.